The sound of dust, covered shoes striking the marble floor, echoed like a challenge. Ethan Cole, 40, 2, tall, broad, shouldered, wearing a wrinkled grey hoodie after a red-eye flight, walked straight into the lobby of the Imperial Crown Hotel. The moment he stepped through the revolving door, the crystal chandeliers poured light down on him like stage spotlights. But there was no applause here, only silence, and the sharp eyes of an audience that sized him up from head to toe. At the reception desk, shift manager Melissa Grant glanced at Ethan for just a second, long enough to pass judgment. She didn't need to speak. Her eyes shouted, "You don't belong here!" A discreet press of a button beneath the counter sounded like a secret signal. Two uniformed security guards appeared at the end of the hallway, their synchronized heavy footsteps carrying an unspoken message. Melissa didn't raise her voice, didn't cause a scene, but the air had already frozen. "I'm sorry, this is a private area. We don't serve walk-in guests," she said, her tone cold and clipped, like reciting a clause from the house rules. Ethan stopped. His hands relaxed at his sides. To an outsider, he might look like just another stranger off the street, maybe from a working-class neighborhood. But in just 20 minutes, they would all learn that the man they were about to throw out was the rightful owner of the entire building. Around him, guests in fur coats sipped red wine. A man lowered his newspaper to take a look. A woman tilted her head toward a friend, whispering behind a raised glass. No one spoke up, but the message was clear. "You're not one of us." Ethan walked slowly. Each step on the marble floor struck like a knock against the arrogance embedded in the room. He wasn't looking for polite smiles. He wanted the raw reaction, the unfiltered truth of how they acted when they thought no one here deserved their respect. The young receptionist behind the desk hesitated, her hand hovering over the keyboard. But Melissa had already stepped in from a side hallway, her heels tapping steadily against the floor. "What's your business here?" she asked, voice calm but hard as steel. "I have a reservation under Cole Enterprises," Ethan replied, without blinking. Melissa didn't even look down to check the system. Instead, she tilted her head as if examining a cheap trinket placed among luxury items. No one laughed out loud, but somewhere nearby came a faint snort. A guest shook his head with a faint smile. The disdain here wasn't loud. It dripped slowly, soaking in like water seeping from an old stone ceiling. "I think you've got the wrong address," Melissa said, folding her arms. "I'd appreciate it if you checked the system," Ethan said evenly. "That really won't be necessary," Melissa cut in, a half-smile curling on her lips. The words were light as air, but hit like a slap. In hotel management law, refusing to verify a guest's reservation is a direct breach of ISO 19513 standard check in protocols. But Melissa didn't care. A young man in leather shoes muttered, "Probably lost." A vague ripple of laughter followed. Ethan didn't rush. His silence wasn't submission. It was time to gather evidence. Every glance, every smirk was a living record. Then, as if placing a black stone on a white chessboard, he produced a card. A Centurion card, matte black, heavy with metal. No limit, invitation only. He set it on the counter, face up. Melissa gave it a brief look. "These days anyone can fake one of those," she said, her voice as cold as stainless steel. A quiet murmur of surprise spread quickly. Even the young receptionist drew her hand back slightly. A guest whistled under his breath. But Melissa stood firm, her decision locked in place. "I'm asking you to check the system one last time," Ethan said, his tone still calm, but carrying a hint of warning. Melissa turned to press the intercom button. "We have a disruptive guest. Please assist in escorting him out." Daniel Ross, the young receptionist, glanced at Ethan, then back at Melissa. Something flickered in his eyes, not agreement, but the look of someone caught between his superior and his conscience. The elevator chimed, and the two guards entered. They didn't ask questions, just approached. One gestured toward the door, the other placed a light hand on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan didn't resist. He let it all play out. But his eyes swept across the lobby, etching each face into memory. "I will remember all of this," he said quietly, just loud enough for Daniel to hear. The air outside was sharp and cold. Ethan pulled out his phone. "Hannah, call the entire board for an emergency meeting. 20 minutes, and make sure you capture every face in that lobby." His voice was low, unhurried. In business, speed matters, but precision delivers the final blow. Hanging up, he slid the phone back into his pocket and walked away. Inside the lobby, Melissa accepted approving nods from a few guests. An older man whispered, "Right decision." Daniel stayed behind the desk, staring at a blank screen. He took a deep breath and typed, "Cole Enterprises, Penthouse, 3 nights." The result appeared instantly. VIP, corporate confirmation, executive level. He froze. Clicking deeper, the profile displayed Ethan Cole, Chief Executive Officer, Cole Hospitality Group. The portrait photo showed the same grey hoodie, the same calm expression. The latest news headline read, "Cole Hospitality acquires Imperial Crown Hotel chain in $410 million deal." Daniel whispered, "He's the CEO. He owns this place." Melissa was still chatting with guests, but Daniel knew the storm was about to break, and it would sweep away everyone who had just convinced themselves they had the right to stand above another person. The revolving door of the Imperial Crown turned once more. The faint whir of its mechanism sounded like the prelude to an unwelcome return. Ethan Cole stepped inside, still in the same grey hoodie, still wearing the dust-stained shoes. Yet the atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The polite hum of the hotel lobby came to a complete halt. A wine glass was set down too firmly on a table with a sharp clink. A female guest dropped her phone. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Daniel Ross swallowed hard. On the screen in front of him, the VIP reservation file was still open. "He's back," he murmured, not sure if he was speaking to anyone in particular. Ethan didn't look left or right. He walked straight ahead, each step as if reclaiming his own territory, the same place that only 20 minutes earlier they had tried to throw him out of. He stopped directly at the front desk. His eyes met Daniel's, not judging, not cold, but steady, like ink printed on a binding contract. "I believe," Ethan said slowly, "you still have my reservation file." Daniel nodded, his throat dry. "Yes, sir." "Penthouse, 3 nights, confirmed." The admission fell into the air like a stone of solid lead. A couple of guests lifted their heads, frowning. Another guest glanced at Melissa, waiting for her reaction. Melissa stepped forward, her heels striking the marble floor like the pounding of a gavel. "What is he doing here?" she demanded. Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and drew out a matte, black business card, edged with sharp silver trim. The lettering glimmered under the lights. Ethan Cole, Chief Executive Officer. Cole Hospitality Group. A sharp intake of breath came from the assistant receptionist. Somewhere, a pen hit the floor. Melissa scoffed. Anyone can print a business card. Ethan placed his phone on the counter, tapped a few keys and said, "Hannah, connect to the boardroom. Put it on speaker." A deep male voice resonated clearly through the system. "Welcome to your new hotel, Mr. Cole. We are fully prepared for your check-in." The entire lobby froze. Suspicious glances shifted to realization, then to stunned disbelief. Melissa stopped mid-step, her face draining of color. Ethan turned to Daniel. "Pull the complaint records from the past 12 months. Filter by handling manager." Daniel hesitated, then began typing. The list appeared on the screen. 17 complaints, all under the name Melissa Grant. 6 were marked resolved with financial compensation. Ethan didn't need to raise his voice. "This isn't a mistake, this is a pattern." A small voice came from the corner, a housekeeping staff member, still holding a cleaning cloth. "She once scolded me just for walking across her line of sight." An older female guest stepped forward. "I had my reservation cancelled the day before I arrived. The reason given was maintenance. But I knew why. I didn't fit the image they wanted." Daniel checked quickly, confirming no maintenance, no replacement reason on record. Melissa tried to fight back, her voice beginning to tremble. "I was protecting the brand image, our standards." Ethan cut her off, his words as sharp as a surgeon's scalpel. "Standards are not discrimination. Under Clause 5.2 of the International Hospitality Code of Conduct, every guest must be treated equally, regardless of appearance or attire. You call this a brand? I call it a violation." No one laughed. No one sipped their drinks. The phones now pointed upward, recording every second. Ethan lowered his voice, yet the weight of his words seemed to sink into the marble beneath their feet. "I didn't come here for revenge. I came to clean house." Melissa stood frozen, and in Daniel's eyes a glimmer of hope appeared, because he knew the balance of power had shifted completely. The man they had once thrown out the door now held the full authority to decide the fate of the entire building. The air in the Imperial Crown Hotel lobby hung thick like sea fog, cold and heavy. Every gaze, from the guests draped in expensive furs to service staff tucked quietly into the corners, was fixed on a single point: Ethan Cole. He stood at the front desk, one hand resting lightly on the marble counter, like a judge about to deliver a verdict. Behind him, the chandelier light poured down, each shimmering ray like a blade slicing through the silence. Melissa Grant stood off to the side, her fingers clenched so tightly her knuckles were bone white. She was used to power, the power of a shift manager who could decide who stayed and who left. But today, that power was stripped bare, laid fully under the lenses of dozens of phones streaming live. Ethan didn't look at Melissa. He turned instead to Daniel Ross, the young receptionist frozen in place. "Daniel," his voice calm, each word clear. "Open Melissa Grant's personnel file. Check her system access and employment status." Daniel swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he typed the command. The screen displayed, "Position, front desk manager. Status active. System. Access full. Ethan gave a small nod. Connect HR. Speakerphone. Seconds later, the voice of Lydia Harper, Director of Human Resources for Cole Hospitality Group, came through the speaker. Yes, Mr. Cole. I'm listening. Prepare termination papers for Melissa Grant. Grounds: severe violation of the Internal Code of Conduct, clauses 3.1, 4.2, and 5.2. Effective immediately. Not a whisper, not a single deep breath. The order landed like an axe against the table. Melissa stepped forward, her voice tight with urgency. This is a setup. You planned this from the start. Ethan still didn't look at her. Melissa, I didn't have to plan anything. You wrote your own script. I'm just the one turning on the light so everyone can see it. Lydia's voice came through the speaker again. File is ready, awaiting final confirmation. Ethan looked at Daniel. Hit confirm. Daniel glanced at Melissa, then back to the screen. His finger hovered for a heartbeat over the red remove icon, then pressed. Ping. A small sound, yet it echoed like the slam of an iron gate. On the screen, the words access revoked, employment terminated appeared. Melissa stared at the text, her lips moving but no sound escaping. A few murmurs rose from the far end of the lobby. Guests and staff exchanged glances, some satisfied, others simply shocked. From the corner of the room, a housekeeper stepped forward hesitantly. Thank you for doing what no one else dared. Ethan turned toward her, his gaze direct. No one deserves to be looked down on, just because they don't fit someone's preference. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried through the space. On social media, this clip would later be tagged #ImperialTruth and spread across platforms within hours. Ethan turned to face the entire lobby. From now on, all internal policies at Imperial Crown will be made public. No more unwritten rules, no more protected misconduct. He placed his phone on the counter, dialing. Jennifer, announce the new policy through all internal channels and issue a press release. Now. Jennifer, head of communications, responded immediately. Understood, sir. Release will go live in 10 minutes. Ethan looked back at Daniel. You hesitated when asked to do something wrong. That hesitation, to me, has value. You might do better than the one who just left. Daniel's eyes widened in disbelief. I'm ready. Not a promotion today, Ethan said, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly. But it's an opportunity, and opportunity only comes to those who keep themselves clean. Sunlight from outside spilled in as the revolving door opened. The glass reflected Ethan standing beside a housekeeper, same height, both standing straight, neither above the other in that moment. A local newspaper photographer lifted his camera, snapping a quick shot. That image would appear on the front page the next morning. CEO ousts manager, restores dignity at Imperial Crown. Reporters swarmed into the lobby, microphones reaching forward. One female journalist asked, Mr. Cole, why didn't you reveal your identity from the start? Ethan looked straight into the camera. Because I don't need people to bow when I walk in. I need them to do the right thing when they think no one's watching. The answer was broadcast live, subtitles scrolling across the screen. Ethan retrieved his phone and turned to his staff. We're going to rebuild this place from the ground up, not with fear, but with respect. Melissa, now just an uninvited guest, slipped quietly out of the lobby with no one to see her off. As she passed through the revolving door, Ethan spoke just loud enough for those nearby to hear. The system that once protected the wrong people has now turned its back on them. Outside, camera lights still flashed. Inside, staff returned to their work, but the air felt different, lighter, more open. Daniel stood behind the counter, his back straighter than ever. Ethan walked away, his shadow stretching long across the marble floor, the mark of a storm that had just swept through. But for Ethan Cole, this was only the beginning. There were other places, other imperial crowns, still waiting for his next dignity check. Outside the imperial crown, late afternoon sunlight filtered through the rows of trees, casting long beams across the sidewalk. But the real light came from the constant flashes outside the entrance, reporters, photographers, and bloggers crowding together, microphones raised, lenses swiveling non-stop. Inside, Ethan Cole stepped back from the front desk. There was nothing more he needed to say. Everything that had to be said had already been spoken before the entire lobby. Now his silence was the next chapter of the story. On the 12th floor, the hotel's internal communications office was in overdrive. Jennifer Ward, head of communications, juggled dozens of calls at once. Yes, confirmed. There's video. The CEO himself has confirmed. No, this isn't some staged PR stunt. Breaking banners flashed across the large screens in the staff lounge. The logos of major news networks appeared alongside the headline. CEO Ethan Cole personally fires manager for discrimination. Truth exposed on the spot. In the staff break room, Lana, a housekeeper with 6 years' experience, twisted the strap of her apron in her hands. I used to think no one in leadership would ever hear us, she told a co-worker. But today feels different. At the bar, Miguel, the morning shift bartender, polished glasses while replaying the clip on his phone. The moment Ethan placed his business card on the counter, then put the boardroom on speaker. He had watched it 10 times and still wasn't tired of it. That's what leadership looks like, Miguel murmured. Ethan walked slowly through the lobby. Staff who had once avoided his gaze now nodded in acknowledgement. A doorman quickly straightened his posture and adjusted his tie. Behind the desk, Daniel Ross watched him go, feeling both relief and weight. Relief that justice had been served, and weight from remembering the first 20 minutes when he had remained silent. Ethan paused, glancing at him over his shoulder. Don't hesitate next time. Let your standards decide before anyone else gives the order. Imperial. Truth climbed to the top 3 trending topics nationwide in just 2 hours. The video titled 20 Minutes from Being Thrown Out to Turning the Tables was shared more than 1.8 million times by evening. Leadership analysts began dissecting every word and movement from Ethan as a crisis management case study. On Twitter, one user wrote, "There's no script more powerful than the truth broadcast live." Another commented, "She picked the wrong person on the wrong day." At the Cole Hospitality Group headquarters in New York, the board of directors held an emergency virtual meeting. Victor Hahn, chief operating officer, opened. "We just witnessed a shockwave for the brand, but a positive one. This transparency and decisiveness will become the standard for the entire network." Another board member added, "Units across the company are already conducting internal reviews tonight. The ripple effect has begun. Ethan left the lobby through a side exit to avoid the press. Hannah Price, his trusted assistant, was waiting by a black SUV at the curb. "Straight to headquarters, or stop by the regional office first?" she asked. Ethan looked out the car window at the city draped in sunset. "Stop at the regional office. I want to meet with HR there first." During the drive, he stayed silent, his eyes distant. Images from the lobby replayed in his mind, faces lowered in shame, hands raised to share the truth, and the moment his Centurion card was dismissed as fake. At the regional office, a wall map marked the locations of every hotel in the network. Standing before it, Ethan listened as Hannah opened her laptop to present her report. 5 hotels with high rates of discrimination complaints. 3 properties flagged by local media reports. 2 staffing hotspots that had lost 15% of their workforce due to management conflicts. Ethan folded his arms, his gaze sharp. Prioritize the places that think no one is watching. Those will be the next stops for the dignity check. That night, Ethan made a brief appearance on a late-night talk show. The host asked, "Do you think today's actions will change the hotel industry?" Ethan replied, "I'm not under the illusion that I can change an entire industry, but I know one building can change, and when enough buildings change, the industry will never be the same." The quote spread across news sites by the next morning. The following day, the Imperial Crown opened with an entirely different atmosphere. The front desk was rearranged with softer lighting, and staff greeted guests proactively. A small sign in the lobby read, "Here, every guest is respected." Daniel received an email from HR, temporarily assuming role of front desk manager during transition period. He took a deep breath. This opportunity was more than a title. It was a reminder that his actions and choices would be under scrutiny. But this time, he was ready. In a cafe a few blocks away, Melissa sat alone. Her phone screen was filled with videos and articles from the previous day's events. She tapped on a clip the moment she dismissed the card, followed by the board's voice on the speakerphone. Her gaze fell to the table. For the first time in years, she realized the power she thought was absolute could vanish in seconds. Back at headquarters, Ethan addressed his strategic advisory team in a closed meeting. "We won't announce ahead of time. No press, no internal alerts. Next time, I want to see their unfiltered reactions, not a polished version." Hannah nodded, typing quickly. "Destination?" she asked. Ethan pointed to a coastal city on the map. "I hear there's a general manager there who thinks local guests aren't classy enough to book a suite. Let's see how he treats a guest who doesn't fit his standards." Night fell, and the city lights came alive. From the 25th floor window, Ethan gazed out at golden strips of light cutting through the darkness. Somewhere in those lights was another hotel lobby, just like the Imperial Crown before yesterday. A place where people believed no one was watching. He took a sip of coffee, his voice low, almost a whisper. "We'll go there and knock." Hannah said nothing, but her eyes reflected the same resolve. Outside, the night was thick and heavy, but inside the room, the map with its glowing red dots lit up like a radar display. The dignity check wasn't a one-time mission. It was a warning, and the next chapter had only just begun. 1 week after the incident at the Imperial Crown, Ethan Cole's name still hadn't left the front pages of business news. But he was nowhere near New York. The private jet of Cole Hospitality Group was descending, gliding over the silver-lit coastline of Seabridge City, a seaside tourist destination famous for its luxury hotels and its unspoken standards. Across from him, Hannah Price handed over a slim folder. "This is Ocean Crest Hotel, one of the properties with the highest rate of discrimination complaints in our system. Multiple reports indicate the general manager here, Graham Ellison, often turns away guests who don't fit the brand image." Ethan flipped through a few pages and stopped at a photo. Graham in a white suit, a perfect smile, standing beside a gold-plated sign reading, "Ocean Crest, elegance above all." His fingers brushed the words, his eyes cold. Elegance above all. Interesting. Let's see how they define elegance. Just like at the Imperial Crown, Ethan did not book the room under his real name. Hannah had used a subsidiary company to reserve an upscale suite for 3 nights without revealing his identity. As for attire, not an Italian suit, but a wrinkled shirt, faded khakis, and a worn, out-rolling suitcase. Once again, Ethan intended to walk through the doors as an unrecognized guest and let them reveal their true behavior. The Ocean Crest lobby was bathed in warm, golden light, the scent of the sea mingling with sandalwood. A self, playing piano, whispered Claire de Lune. Guests in silk jackets and champagne glasses exchanged vague, polite smiles. Ethan entered, the suitcase wheels rolling across polished stone, producing a long, steady sound. A few eyes flicked toward him, brief, but enough to send the message. This man didn't belong here. At the front desk, 3 staff members stood ready, but in the center was Graham Ellison. Silver hair slicked back, navy tie, a smile frozen in place. He looked Ethan up and down, his smile unchanged but his eyes already closed off. "Sorry, what brings you here?" Graham's voice was smooth but cold, like glass striking glass. "I have a reservation. Horizon Suite, 3 nights, booked through Crest Group Holdings," Ethan replied evenly. Graham tilted his head and signaled a female staff member to check. She tapped the keyboard for a few seconds, glanced at Graham, and shook her head slightly. "I'm sorry, sir, but I don't see any reservation under your name." Ethan leaned slightly forward. "Try searching under the company name Crest Group Holdings." The employee hesitated, but Graham cut in. "We don't accept corporate bookings without prior notice. Internal Policy Section 4.3. There must be some misunderstanding." Ethan locked eyes with him. Section 4.3 states that corporate guests need to give prior notice if requesting special services. I haven't asked for anything but a bed and a key. A few nearby guests stopped talking and turned to listen. A woman whispered, "Another one who thinks they can just walk in here." Graham's smile remained, but his tone hardened. "We prioritize maintaining our brand image. There are certain standards, and you might find yourself more comfortable somewhere else." The words were like a cold blade. Ethan didn't answer right away, letting the silence spread. Then he placed a thick envelope on the counter, the purchase contract for Ocean Crest, signed just 48 hours earlier, bearing Graham's own signature on the last page. Graham glanced down, froze for a fraction of a second, then quickly regained his smile. I'm not sure you understand." "I understand perfectly," Ethan interrupted, and I'm here to see how you enforce policy when you think no one is watching. Ethan pressed a button on his phone. Lydia, confirm Cole Hospitality Group's ownership of Ocean Crest. Put it on speaker. Lydia's voice filled the lobby. Yes, Mr. Cole. Cole Hospitality officially took over Ocean Crest Hotel as of 0:00 today. Congratulations. The lobby fell silent. Graham swallowed, his smile gone. Ethan turned to the female front desk clerk. I want to see the complaint records from the past 12 months. Filter by responsible manager. The screen displayed them. 22 complaints, 8 cases ending in financial settlements, all linked to Graham Ellison. Ethan read a few. Guest denied check, in for improper dress code, despite confirmed booking. Local couple downgraded to an inferior room, without explanation. He looked up. This isn't a standard. This is a barrier. From the corner of the lobby, a young waiter spoke up. He once told me to keep my distance from VIP guests because I spoke with a local accent. An older guest near the fireplace added, he cancelled my wedding reception here because the guest list didn't fit the brand image. Graham's eyes darted around, searching for allies, but found only faces stripped of trust. Ethan's voice was low, but carried through the space. Section 2.1 of your employment contract states clearly, any act of discrimination, whether direct or indirect, constitutes a serious violation and results in immediate termination. He pressed his phone again. Lydia, proceed with termination of Graham Ellison's contract. Effective now. Graham stepped back, lips parting. You can't. I just did, Ethan said flatly. The front desk clerk hit the confirmation key. Ping! Graham's system access vanished. Ethan turned to the staff. Ocean Crest will no longer judge guests by brand image. We will judge by service standards, and that standard is respect. He paused, sweeping his gaze over the crowd. If anyone here has ever been pressured to act against professional principles, my door is always open. But remember, next time, don't stay silent. Outside, Titles crashed steadily against the shore, indifferent to the drama that had just unfolded. But inside Ocean Crest, another wave had begun, the wave dismantling false standards. Ethan turned to leave, but before stepping away, he stopped. Hannah, mark the next point on the map. We're not stopping here. His eyes drifted toward the glass doors, to where the ocean stretched endlessly, just like the list of places still convinced no one was watching. In any industry, true power does not lie in the title printed on a business card, but in the ability to make the right values a mandatory standard. Ethan Cole has not only changed how a single hotel operates, he is rewriting the definition of standards, from grand lobbies to quiet hallways. In business, you can buy the building, the furniture, even the marketing campaign. But you cannot buy genuine respect. It only comes when a leader is willing to step down to the ground floor and look directly at how people are treated when no one thinks they are being watched. If you believe respect must come before profit, hit like on this video, subscribe to follow the next dignity checks, and leave a comment below with the words, "Hold the dignity." Because change sometimes begins with a single sentence, and sometimes with a look that does not turn away.